Hello and welcome to Bags of Action. My name's Steve and this is a 5-minute review of 21 Bridges, starring Chadwick Boseman and Sienna Miller. Chadwick Boseman plays a New York detective called Andre Davis, who at the start of the film is being questioned by internal affairs because he's been using his gun, apparently they see with too much force, where he argues he only uses it when absolutely necessary. The film then kicks off into a much higher gear, where two criminals attempt to rob a restaurant which is also doubling up for a stash for a drug dealer, except when they arrive the amount of drugs they find is 10 times what they were expecting and far too much for them to carry. They suddenly realise that they're in way over their heads, but instead of backing out and just running away, they quickly find that they're cornered because there's some police officers knocking on the door of the restaurant, and this is late at night when there's no one around. The cops spot them inside and a gun battle ensues whereby Michael and Ray kill 7 police officers in their attempt to escape. Officer-related shootings are obviously handled by the police with extreme prejudice, and this is no exception with 7 officers dead on the ground. Andre's brought in to investigate, and he's partnered up with a narcotics officer played by Sienna Miller. The two of them are then going to find these 2 criminals and bring them to justice. The problem is the FBI wants to get involved because they're saying, oh, this quantity of drugs, there's something else going on, but they're able to hold them at bay for a little while. The name of the film comes from the 21 bridges on Manhattan Island because they know that the criminals are on there somewhere. So a deal is struck between them and the FBI. They'll say, we'll close the island until 5 or 5 in the morning. If you haven't caught them by that time, the FBI will take over the case. So the hunt is on. All of the bridges are closed, all of the tunnels, all of the rivers are being patrolled, and they flood the Manhattan Island with police officers. And this is where the chase then begins. They're running after the 2 criminals who know because they're suddenly on every news channel, their faces are everywhere, and the net begins to tighten on them. The runtime of this film is a little over an hour and a half, so it doesn't lag in any particular way, and when it really gets going, the chase doesn't really give up. There is some character development, but given the nature of the plot and also the amount of time available, there isn't a lot, but you get a little bit at the beginning with Chadwick Boseman's character. You get little touches here and there where he's talking to Sienna Miller's character, and we find a little bit about her daughter, but overall, most of the other characters don't really get much time and space to develop. There are some really big names on this cast, whether it's J.K. Simmons, you've got Stephen James, Taylor Kitch, Keith David, who's always good in everything as the deputy chief. You've got Alexander Siddig from Star Trek playing this drug dealer and sort of middleman. So there's a lot of things to like about this film. Given what happens, you can tell that there's something going on beyond just the fact that these 2 criminals are on the run. There's something to do with the police force, there's something to do with a large quantity of drugs that was found. There's more of a story here than we're initially being told. So as Andre tries to find the criminals, he's also trying to uncover the truth of what is going on, and we find that the 2 criminals aren't exactly the kind of people that we thought. Both of them are ex-military, both of them had problems with the service. One tried to get involved with the police force and they have connections to it, so there's a lot of grey in this film. I saw some of the twists coming, but that didn't really detract from my enjoyment of the film because the pace is quite relentless and all of the actors on screen are really good and convincing in the roles, so nothing is too far-fetched. There's no moments in the film where I thought if you were actually on the run, that isn't what you would do. They react like real people who are just caught in extremely difficult circumstances and they're just trying to make the best of it. None of the lines were too hokey, none of the script was too on the nose, and it felt fairly grounded despite the kind of strange and slightly far-fetched premise of closing the entire of Manhattan Island. In some way the film reminds me of the Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3 because there's the obvious story but then there's something else going on at the same time, and these 2 things are running in parallel between the criminals and the police force. Chadwick Boseman and Sienna Miller work really well on screen together as these 2 partners who are just thrown together on this really difficult and awkward case, and they're trying to make the best of it because they want to bring these criminals to justice because they've killed 7 police officers. The rest of the cast is really solid. I really enjoyed the performances by J.K. Simmons and Keith David. Stephan James is also worth mentioning as one of the criminals. He's playing Michael, and Taylor Kitch is the other. Overall, I came out and I really enjoyed this film. When I think back on it, I enjoyed the action, I enjoyed the script, the pace was really good, there were no weak performances. At times the plot was a little bit predictable and you can kind of see where it was going, but that didn't really detract from my enjoyment of the film. So having thought about it and had a little bit of time since I watched it, I'm going to give this a solid 4 out of 5 bags and say it's definitely worth seeing and I'd recommend it. And it also shows that Chadwick Boseman is really good in the lead roles in a different kind of film and he can hold his own with some very well established actors. So, have you seen 21 Bridges? If so, get in touch with us and let us know. You can contact us via email, join the Facebook group, and don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel.